You're listening to The Awcast, the most awesome wrestling podcast you'll ever listen to, at least in the confines of my own mind. Let's go. And welcome back to Aftershock Wrestling Entertainment. Welcome back to The Awcast. I'm your host, Brant Fowler, and we are going to talk about War Games that came to the main roster of WWE, and we got to experience it firsthand at Survivor Series this past Saturday. And so I'm going to talk all about my thoughts on Survivor Series, what happened there, the fallout on Raw, and more. So let's get into that. Before we get into today's show, if you like the content on this channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss a single video that goes up. Give us a like because it really does help. If you're an audio listener, you can find the video versions at allpodcast.com. Video listeners, go to allpodcast.com/show or find it on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts from. Subscribe to the newsletter, allpodcast.com/subscribe, and follow me on social media at The Awcast. Now back to today's show. So, Survivor Series War Games, November 26th, Saturday, and it was exciting. We had 2 War Games matches, one to start the show, one to end the show. We could see during the kickoff show, it was clear there were going to be no matches on the kickoff show whatsoever because the 2 cages were already fastened to the ring because we were going to start the event with the women's War Games match. There were only 5 matches on this card, but both War Games matches were given plenty of time to play out, and then all the other matches in between were pretty long, pretty significant matches as well. So I'm just going to run down the card real quick. Women's War Game match, Team Belair. It's Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Mia Yim, and the returning Becky Lynch versus Damage Control, Nikki Cross, and Rhea Ripley from Judgment Day. And then we had AJ Styles facing Finn Balor, the 2 leaders of their respective factions of the OC and the Judgment Day. Ronda Rousey defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Shotzi. And Austin Theory challenging Austin Theory and Bobby Lashley, if I can talk, challenging Seth Rollins for the United States Championship, and then capping everything off with the men's War Games match, which was, of course, the Bloodline versus the Brawling Brutes, Drew McIntyre, and Kevin Owens. So that is your card. So like I said, we started off with the women's War Games match, and it was not the best women's War Games match that I've seen, but it was still pretty solid. There were some spots that I think there was some like miscommunication, miscue, some mishaps. Unfortunately for Io, there was a spot in the corner where she was trying to do a headstand and then a kick, and she could not get balanced right for some reason. I don't know if the cage was interfering with her handstand or what was going on there, but she made up for it later with a moonsault from the top of the cage and different spots like that. So it was hard hitting. It was fine. They started off with 2 of the women, and then you slowly had each competitor after that adding weapons to the match till all 10 women were in the match. And then it was all out chaos and war. And there was plunder or foreign objects, whatever you want to call them, weapons everywhere. There were tables, there were trash cans, trash can lids, kendo sticks, all the fixings. We just finished Thanksgiving here in the States, so that's appropriate. So they set the table for that one. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty solid match in the end. Bianca Belair's team won the women's match. So kind of as expected, everybody keeps one-upping Bayley. And of course you had Becky Lynch returning, so you couldn't have Becky Lynch return and then lose. But I thought they gave this match plenty of time, enough time to showcase each and every person in it. Because like I said, you start off with the 2 women, and then whoever's got the advantage after 5 minutes a member of their team comes in, and then it rotates from there every 3 minutes. That's 2 or 3 minutes afterwards. So you've got a good like 40-minute match where you have all these women coming in, and it I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. You had Rhea Ripley in there. You had Mia Yim, who hasn't been on the main roster, but for a cup of coffee. I know that I think that's something that Jerry Lawler said on the kickoff show. She had been part of the original cast of Retribution, and then she disappeared, and then she got fired, and then she went to Impact, back to Impact. And so when she came back, she skipped right over NXT and went straight to the main roster, which was cool. I think she looks better than she has in years. I think she's probably at the top of her game now since her first run in Impact. And so I'm excited to see what she's going to do. She seems to be holding her own against Rhea Ripley. We saw more of that on Monday Night Raw, which we'll get into. But all in all, I thought for the first War Games match on the main roster, aside from a few mishaps here and there, I thought it was a pretty good match. And it was a good back and forth, steady back and forth. The momentum of who was winning changed constantly throughout the match. So that I thought it was pretty good. AJ Styles versus Finn Balor was up next. And this is a grudge match. History between these two going back to the beginnings of the Bullet Club. And they mentioned the Bullet Club by name, not just the club. They called it the Bullet Club on Survivor Series. Michael Cole referenced the Bullet Club. That was a first, I believe, for WWE, actually referring to it as the Bullet Club. So now you have this continuity that's not just on the indie promotions and AEW. Now it's continuity across all of wrestling, including WWE. And I thought that was really cool that they did kind of bring that in. And so now we've got the Bullet Club history where Finn Balor started the Bullet Club with Carl Anderson. AJ Styles came in, kind of took over, they kicked Finn out. And so you got these two head to head once again. And as you can imagine, any match between these two, who are two of the best athletes in the entire world of wrestling. And they put on a clinic, they put on a great show. Ultimately, AJ Styles was the victor, which I love. AJ Styles is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. And I think he deserves all the accolades that he has gotten in WWE. He worked a long time to get there, and he's shown up and shown out, as they say. So and it furthered the feud, as we saw going into Monday Night Raw, where AJ and his team thinks they're done with the Judgment Day. Much to his chagrin, they are not. Next up was the SmackDown Women's Championship. Ronda Rousey defending against Shotzi. And Shotzi was supposed to have Raquel Rodriguez in her corner. Obviously, Shayna Baszler in the corner of Ronda Rousey. But they attacked Raquel before the match started, so took her out so she could not accompany Shotzi. Shotzi had to go in and alone. But Shotzi really showed something in this match. She went toe-to-toe with Ronda, held her ground. Yeah, she got beat down quite a bit, but she rallied several times and got the best of both of them, was taking them both out. And it was the best version of Shotzi I think we've seen on the main roster since she was called up from NXT. She was always great in NXT, but we have not gotten to see her shine on the main roster over on SmackDown since she came up. And this match, I think, solidified Shotzi as an actual contender. And like I said, she did really well. And if it hadn't been for Shayna Baszler, who knows? Maybe she would have pulled it out. But, of course, they couldn't let that happen. So, ultimately, Ronda Rousey successfully retained her championship. Next up, we had that triple threat that had been building up. Austin Theory had tried to cash in his Money in the Bank contract on the United States Championship, which was a first. And Bobby Lashley cost him that match, pulled him out so he could not win the match. And so that led to this triple threat where you have Bobby Lashley, Seth freaking Rollins, and Austin Theory fighting each other for the United States Championship. And this match went a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, and it was a lot more even than I thought it was going to be. The match, it was kind of cool though. The match started off with Bobby Lashley clotheslining Austin Theory out of the ring, and like, I'm not playing with you, kid. And then he comes back in, and Seth Rollins does the same thing, and then it's Bobby and Seth going at it until Austin gets back in and says, "You ain't gonna ignore me." And ultimately, after a huge back and forth, momentum changing between all three of these guys constantly throughout the match, some hard hits, everybody hitting their signatures, everybody countering and avoiding signatures, everybody kicking out of signatures. Ultimately, Bobby Lashley took Seth Rollins out. Austin Theory accidentally rolls into the pin. Now he is your new United States champion. So maybe his cash-in didn't work out, but in the end, he did capture the United States Championship, so it was pretty cool. And before we get into the main event, which is the men's War Games match, let's just share this. If you're a fan of comic books and podcasts, you should check out Comic Book Weekly, Comic Frontline's podcast all about the world of comics, where we share our top 5 comics of the week, talk about the latest news in the industry, and interact with our viewers live each and every Tuesday night at 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time. You can check us out at youtube.com/comicfrontline or search for Comic Book Weekly on YouTube. All right, so the men's War Games match, the Bloodline, Roman Reigns, the Usos, Solo, and Sami Zayn going up against the Brawling Brutes, Sheamus, Butch or Pete Dunne, whatever you want to call them, Ridge Holland, Drew McIntyre, and Kevin Owens. And a lot of history here. I wasn't sure about the buildup with the Brawling Brutes being the main adversaries for the Bloodline. But when it was clear, they bring in Drew McIntyre, and then the obvious choice would be Kevin Owens. Then it kind of fit a little bit better because you have huge history with Roman and both Drew and Kevin. And then, of course, there's Sami and Kevin and all that. And we had seen some tag team matches with the Brutes versus the Usos. And, of course, they took out Sheamus. So it all made sense. And ultimately, you had 10 hard-hitting guys in this match that were going to put on a great show. So the interesting thing about this going into it is the previous night on SmackDown, Kevin Owens had approached Sami Zayn, right? And he had tried to get in his head, telling him that, the Bloodline's going to turn on you. You should turn on them. And Jey Uso, of course, overheard this and took it to Roman and all that. So you got all this tension and all this, this distrust going in there with Jey Uso, just believing Sami Zayn is not there for good reasons, that he's going to turn on him, that he's, he's not a good guy and a good fit. He's not blood and all that. So you got that going in, right? So then you have who's going to start. And it was kind of clear that, okay, Jey Uso, he's probably going to start. He's the right-hand man, right? He's the main event Jey Uso now, right? So I thought for sure, okay, it's going to be Jey Uso. And then, of course, Butch, who's been in War Games before, he's going to start. That was where my predictions of the order of events would end, because at first I was like, okay, it's going to be these two starting, and then that guy's going to commit that guy, so on and so forth. And by the very next entrant, it blew all that to pieces, but it made perfect sense and beautiful storyline. All right, so you had Butch and Jey Uso going in there, and if you've never seen like Pete Dunne like really get at it, dude is a beast in the ring, and I don't think he's shown his full potential since coming up to SmackDown. In NXT, if you watched any of NXT and you've seen Pete Dunne wrestle, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, go check out some matches. But yeah, so he's been in this, and Jey Uso, he's been doing a lot more singles wrestling over the past few years, and so these two go at it. And they go at it hard. And, at first it's like there's a standoff. One's in one ring, one's in the other. And they're like, all right, come on. And then they get at it. And it's good. It's good stuff. It's good wrestling. It's good chain wrestling, good hard-hitting wrestling. And both these guys are all in it, right? And these are the cardio beasts of the teams, I think, or two of them. And so next, I'm like, okay, Jimmy's going to come in. You're going to bring in his tag team partner. Then it's going to be Ridge and so on and so forth, right? But no, Roman grabs Jimmy. He's like, you ain't going in. Sami, go in there. So now, all of a sudden, the Bloodline has the advantage. But you have Sami Zayn and Jey Uso who are not getting along. They're constantly butting heads. And Jey Uso doesn't trust Sami, doesn't like Sami. So these two now have to work together for the next 3 minutes. And it's beautiful. Like, Sami is saving Jey left and right, and he's helping him out. But Jay's still like, nah, man, get off of me. I don't trust you. I don't believe you. Just you stay over there. I'll do my thing and that kind of thing. Or you do what I tell you to do. And this goes on throughout the whole match, right? So ultimately, you get everybody in after the back and forth, of course. And of course, Roman Reigns is the last for his team to come in. And then I can't remember if it was Drew or Kevin that came in last. I think it was Drew. So Kevin Owens was the next to last, if I remember correctly. So once you get everybody in there, War Games actually begins. Now you can win it. Gets brutal. Of course, just like the women's, weapons everywhere, all that going on. And people are beating the crap out of each other, high spots, everybody hitting finishers, top of the cage spots and all that stuff that you would expect in a War Games match. And I love this. I love this, that my complaint a couple episodes back when I talked about War Games and how I wasn't sure about like removing the cage top, but I understood the reasoning behind it and all this stuff. But one of the rules of this version of War Games is if you leave the cage, you forfeit the match. And I thought that's brilliant because, okay, that eliminates the need for the roof now. Because if you're not allowed to leave and if you forfeit the match by leaving, then the roof is inconsequential. It doesn't matter. And then you can do more spots where you climb up there and do the spots off the top of the cage. So I thought that was brilliant. That's a good rule. I love that rule. And it makes the match more high stakes and more than a Hell in a Cell or just a regular cage match. So that's cool. So anyway, back and forth ensues and all that. And Kevin Owens is beating the crap out of people. And it, up to the very end of the match, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, every time they got close to each other, they just avoided each other. They weren't going to fight each other at all. And it was like, is he going to turn on the Bloodline? Is the Bloodline going to turn on him? What's going to go on? Is he going to turn on Kevin? And ultimately, it's Jey Uso about to go down. He's about to lose, right? And Sami Zayn low blows Kevin Owens. Takes him out. Jey Uso gets the pin. Bloodline wins. Stands tall. Victorious. As we knew they would be. But the way that the storytelling was woven in there, and then at the end, Jey Uso grabs Sami, hugs him. He's like, all right, we're good. And that's that. Now you're family. You proved yourself. We're good. And it's great. And in the back of my mind, though, I'm thinking, now Sami can turn on down the line. He's gotten in now. He's really in now. And who knows? Maybe that'll happen. Maybe it won't. But in a minute, we're going to talk about Monday Night Raw and see where things go from there. Hey, do you like free stuff? You can get a free digital fan-made AEW comic from creator Todd Black just by signing up for our VIP mailing list at allpodcast.com/subscribe. You'll also receive periodic updates about content coming to you from the Allcast and exclusive offers. So go sign up and get your free comic today. So on Monday Night Raw, it started out with the Bloodline coming into the ring, sans Roman Reigns, because Roman Reigns only shows up every 2 shows or so. Once a month, twice a month, whatever it is. And it starts with the Bloodline, though, the rest of the members, and they're talking about it, how they're good, and Sami gets like really passionate, really emotional. And it's like, Jay, when you accepted me, when you embraced me, it meant the world to me that you guys consider me family now, and I'm in. And then, of course, Kevin Owens' music hits. And Kevin comes out there, and Sami's like, nah, Kevin, I'm cutting you off. You stop right there. We're not going to fight. And this is where it gets beautiful because Kevin's like, you know what, Sami? I'm not here for you. 20 years, our careers have been linked. Now I'm done. I don't want to tag with you. I don't want to fight you. I don't want nothing to do with you. And Sami's like, I don't care if I'm ever in the same room with you. And it's like, wow. And so then Jay, of course, steps up and comes to Sami's defense and says, you want to get at him, you got to go through me. And so now we have a match. It's the main event. He was like, you got to do a main event Jay Uso, of course, in the main event. And so now we have this main event match between Jay Uso and Kevin Owens, just setting this off. And it's like, either it's just beautiful that we're finally parting ways between Kevin and Sami and they can do their own thing and Kevin can go for the title, whatever. But as long as he's going for Roman, Sami's going to be there, right? Or this is the most brilliant subterfuge in the history of wrestling where Sami has just embedded himself to take them out from the inside. Who knows what's going to happen? It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But that's kind of where Raw is headed, right? So other fallout, like I mentioned earlier in the show, the Judgment Day is like, we're not done with the OC yet. And so they come out and they're like, all right, you know, I think we had a match between Mia Yim and Rhea Ripley. And of course, everybody gets involved and that's what sets it off. And AJ's like, all right, we're going to settle this now. 4-person on 4-person. Let's get it on. So they do that. We have seen Rhea Ripley just like interjecting herself for weeks and, you know, attacking every member of the OC. And finally, towards the end of this match, when Mia Yim finally gets in there, gets tagged in, she body slams Finn Balor and shows that she can hang. She can do the exact same. So this feud is far from over, I think. But this was a pretty good match. We got some really good spots from Carl Anderson. We got a brutal dive where Corey Graves was like freaking up, diving out of the way, where Damian Priest and Luke Gallows like just came crashing into the announce table just with no notice whatsoever. And it was hard. It was a hard hitting blow there, but it was a good back and forth. And these guys are a good matchup, guys and gals. I'm curious to see where that goes from here because it can't go on forever. But again, there is that history. So who knows how that's going to play out in the end. But it was a pretty solid opening. I think it was the last match of the first hour. Like the whole first hour, this was cool too. The first hour of Monday Night Raw this week was without commercials. So you got to enjoy that whole first hour going into that, every match, every, you know, backstage skit or whatever. And I appreciate that. We don't get that often. Something else that happened was The Miz finally fought Dexter Lumis. He tried to get out of it again. I'll get it out there one way or another. But Adam Pearce showed up out of nowhere, like, where you been past few months, man? But he's back in charge again, I guess. And he comes in and tells Miz, nah, you're not getting out of this one. And so he finally fights Dexter Lumis. Really good match. Ultimately, Dexter Lumis is just taking everything the Miz can throw at him. Every blow, every finish, every foreign object. He actually puts a vice on his head and tries to crank it. Just hilarious stuff like that. And ultimately, Dexter Lumis wins. He gets a contract, gets the bag of money, starts giving out hundreds to kids. Johnny Gargano gets involved. Following that, we got a beautiful match between Candice LeRae and Dakota Kai. And I'm sorry, the Bloodline did not open Monday Night Raw. I just realized that. I'll circle back to that in a minute. That came a little bit later. Yeah. So Dakota Kai and Candice LeRae, this match was so good. The one nitpick I have is that Dakota Kai was like, it was a little over halfway through the match. Towards the end, but a little over halfway, Dakota Kai hits what has traditionally been her finisher, which is that running boot in the corner. And Candice just kicks out of it like it's nothing. And she kicks out of everything. Everything Dakota Kai can throw at her. But these two were just like pulling out moves. that I've not seen in a while. I don't know what you call it, but there was one spot where Candice grabbed Dakota Kai's arms between her own legs, between Dakota's legs, and picked her up and suplexed her. I know there's a name for it. I cannot think of the name for it, but it's an odd looking suplex, and you hit that wrong. They're laying on the back of their neck, and that looked brutal. Um, Dakota was hitting her with all kinds of kicks. There was one pump kick that she did in the middle of the ring that just like it looked like it connected just like so flush on Candice's chin and about knocked her out. It looked like um, there was a spot where Candice was trying to like a version of a DDT or something on Dakota on the apron, but she slightly missed the the apron, and so Dakota's head smacks off the side of the apron, and she's just like dangling from the ropes by one of her legs and just hanging there. I mean, these two women just put it all on the line. Ultimately, Candice won, really showed what she's capable of on the main roster. I was like, man, this looks like an NXT women's match right here. Um, so yeah, it was a brilliant match. Love that. Circling back to the beginning of Raw, I apologize. The Bloodline did come out early, but Becky Lynch actually started the show, and it was a cool opening because she came out there and said, welcome to Monday Night Raw. Then she went out into the audience and was like talking to guys, Bobby and Zachary, these two fans in the ring. And one of them was an X-Men fan. He had an X-Men shirt on, so props to my comic people out there watching Monday Night Raw in attendance there. But she chatted it up with him. And then, of course, Bayley comes out. Damage Control comes out. They triple team her. It goes into the concession stand and, the merchandise stands and all that stuff. And brawl to start out Monday Night Raw early on. And then we get that whole commercial-free hour, which was cool. I don't remember all the matches or all the segments and all that off the top of my head, but finishing the show, of course, was Jey Uso versus Kevin Owens. The whole Bloodline's out there. Kevin Owens is on his own. Jey Uso was throwing everything at Kevin Owens, too. This was a really good match. And there were so many super kicks in this match. And one that Corey Graves said that was probably the best super kick he's ever seen. I don't know if I agree with that. But it was a pretty cool, like, jumping super kick that Jey Uso did to Kevin. But, man, he was just hitting him with so many super kicks. Kevin got one in, but Jey just countered with another one. But Kevin Owens would not stay down. He would not give up. And even with all the Bloodline out there, even with Sami Zayn out there cheering Jey on, somehow Kevin Owens hit the stunner, got the pinfall, rolled out. This ain't over. Jey and the whole Bloodline is going to hear about this come SmackDown from Roman. And so that's going to be fun to watch. Next week, we got the Usos facing off against Elias and Riddle. The Street Profits came back, and they were fighting the Alpha Academy. So it was really good to see them back in the ring, too. So, Austin Theory and Seth Rollins had a confrontation, which was really intense, really good. Seth Rollins was, calling him kid repeatedly because he was like, don't ever call me kid again and all that. So that rivalry seems like it's going to really heat up. It was a really good episode of Raw and a really good fallout from Survivor Series. And now I'm like, I can't wait for SmackDown to see how they follow up that. But yeah, Survivor Series, pretty solid. Raw, pretty solid. So we're in a good place right now. And we're heading into, I don't know if there's an event in December. I don't know what is in December. I'm not sure. But we've got Royal Rumble around the corner. Tickets are going on sale this week for Elimination Chamber, which is following that. Then we've got WrestleMania. So we got a bunch of good stuff coming up, and we're building up to everything. So wrestling's good right now is my my point. Across the board, wrestling is just good. It's exciting. It's fun. I'm enjoying it. I hope you're enjoying it too. But yeah, that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this video or this podcast, whichever version you're listening to. I appreciate it. And I'd love to hear your comments, hear your feedback, what you thought of Survivor Series and Raw, and where you see things going from here and all the storylines going on. and what you want to see. I'm really curious about that. Like, who do you want to see this Becky and Bailey thing continue? Do you want to see Candice LeRae get in the mix there? Oh, and there was a backstage segment with where they were interviewing Alexa, Bianca, and Asuka, and you see the Firefly thing pop up behind Alexa on the screen, and she's just like despondent through the whole thing. She doesn't say anything, so you know they're doing something. They're slowly building something up with that with Bray Wyatt, that history there. So who knows what's going to happen with that? But I'd love to hear your comments below. Let me know, and if you did like this video, give it a like, get thumbs up, all that. Subscribe, visit all the links, check it out, and check out all the other episodes. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on the Allcast. Until then, keep watching wrestling and stay awesome. Take care. Bye.